the Experience Darden podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Alys Herbert. Alys is a first-year student in our full-time MBA class of 2026, and she and I recently connected to talk more about her background, her decision to pursue an MBA, what she's enjoyed about her first year here at Darden, her new role as VP of Academics for the Graduate Women in Business Club, and so much more. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And as always, if this conversation is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to Experience Darden so you never miss an update. And remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. And now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Alys Herbert. Alys, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
It's great to speak with you. How are you doing? How's everything?
Pretty good. We're about halfway through Q4 now, so enjoying the electives season.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to choose your classes. You come out of core, a little bit more choice here. What classes are you taking right now?
So I'm taking 4. The first is negotiations. I'm also taking managing international trade and investments, which is really very relevant for sort of what's happening now in the political landscape. I'm also taking At Your Best, which is a sort of resiliency and leadership class. And then last but not least, data visualization and analytics. So a little bit heavier with, learning good data tools and everything. But yeah.
Have you figured out what you're going to do this summer?
Yes. So I will be interning at Amazon in Seattle. I'm going to be working as a senior vendor manager intern. So very excited for that.
That's awesome. Did you know you wanted to work in tech when you came to business school?
Actually, no. I sort of thought about tech when I got here more so as I was exploring other industries. I initially thought I wanted to do more brand management based on my background. But after speaking to different alums and just exploring sort of the wide array of careers you can have in tech, not necessarily just sort of technical backgrounds needed, I wanted to give it a shot with Amazon. So yeah, very, very grateful to be going there this summer.
No, I always just enjoy asking people that question because just to a person here on the podcast, people's career interests change, even over those first few months of their first year as they're thinking about what they want to do for their first year internship. So, well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I want to talk about you and your background and kind of what got you here to Darden, and also want to talk about the ways that you're involved here in the Darden community kind of in the second half of our conversation. So let's begin by just asking you to tell me a little bit more about you. Who are you and what's your background?
Yes. So obviously, as you mentioned, my name is Alys Herbert. If you can't already tell from my accent, I grew up in London, England, and came to the US for college. I actually went to UVA for undergrad as well. So I'm a double who right now, which is really, really fun. I sort of grew up traveling a lot. My parents both were raised outside of the UK. I have a lot of American family as well. So traveling and being in different cultures has always been sort of part of my DNA. So coming here for undergrad was kind of just another way for me to expand out of my comfort zone a little bit. After UVA, I worked in New York. I started my career in advertising there. So I was working in more media planning, sort of the nuts and bolts of how media works within the larger advertising umbrella. Through COVID, I actually ended up moving to LA. I had, like many people, I was laid off. I had an unfortunate layoff, but then relocated with a promotion out to LA. And I'd never been there before. I think it was maybe just actually once or twice, but I had never lived there. So it was really fun being out on the West Coast. And in LA, I was there for another 4 years in advertising. And my role sort of expanded to more social media strategy. So a lot of work with TikTok, as well as content partnerships. So it's funny, I tell people I did 4 years in Charlottesville, 4 in New York, 4 in LA, and now I'm doing a bit of a triangle back to Charlottesville for the MBA. But yeah, that's a bit about sort of me and professionally where I've been.
What's it like to be back in Charlottesville after being in these 2 huge metro areas?
It's the best. I think it's the perfect place to do an MBA just because, the MBA in itself is a new sort of rigorous experience, but having the backdrop of Charlottesville with, the nature and just kind of medium-sized town, but sort of quaint feel. I think it's a nice contrast and allows for relaxation when needed, and also just getting outside. Charlottesville's actually grown a lot since I was here. I graduated in 2016, so it's been about 8 years. So it's really fun to see how the town has evolved, but there's still a lot of, places that I remember as an undergrad that it's fun going back to. So yeah, been really great.
How did you decide you wanted to pursue an MBA?
I kind of started thinking about an MBA probably 3 or 4 years into my career. It was actually around sort of the COVID timing when I was sort of hit with this unexpected life event, as was everyone, with the backdrop of sort of the global pandemic. And it was at that time that I was thinking, okay, I have this sort of unexpected time off. Let me just do like a little reset of where I am in my career, what I'm thinking long term, because I knew at that time I didn't see myself in advertising long term necessarily, but I knew I wanted to sort of build my business acumen. I think having done some exploring, and also with my father went to business school as well, I was always exposed to sort of what it meant, the education, what it can do for you. So really, it was honestly kind of that 4 years point and then beyond when I was living in LA that I really did a lot more research into sort of the benefits, especially, being a woman in business as well, and just thinking about not just the 1 year ROI, but the 20-year ROI. And I think I'm always someone who wants to keep learning and growing and pushing myself, obviously with my different moves, as you've heard around the US. And so I felt that the MBA, or as I was exploring the MBA, was an interesting path, and I think a path that could challenge me and ultimately just make me smarter, like at the crux, and just make me a better businesswoman. So my journey to Darden specifically was kind of it wasn't a typical journey, I'd say. I did actually apply in the pandemic, and I did get accepted, but I also got my sort of new job in LA. So it was at my first sort of crossroads of what do I do? I ultimately accepted the job in LA, and that worked well for me. And sort of I gained a lot more experience in that next role that I feel I've been bringing to Darden in a different way. But that kind of kickstarted my journey with Darden specifically after applying and building the relationship there. So it's been a back and forth, I think, not as clean cut as I think some people may have with the MBA. But I think it's, just as valid. And just with how I've experienced my career and wanting to dive deep into advertising, I did hit a point during that work where I realized I was kind of maybe about the MBA generally, but like I said, I did more research. I kind of was a little bit more purposeful with what I wanted to do, and where I wanted to grow. And so that kind of occurred at my sort of 6 year, 7 year mark of working. But I'm grateful for the journey I had in advertising, and, I worked at really great companies with some really great clients. And I think it helped me ultimately be the person I am here, showing up in the way that I want to show up at Darden, just being a bit older and having worked for a bit longer. So hopefully that answers the question a little bit, but yeah, a bit of a windy journey.
I don't think of that as unusual at all. And I think there's a lot of folks who think about an MBA, kind of step away from it, come back to it. That doesn't sound unusual to me. I think that sounds very, very real and resonates with a lot of what folks have shared here on this podcast. So you come to Darden. Obviously, Charlottesville was not new to you, but being a graduate business student was. And so you come to Darden. What was the adjustment process like? What were those first couple months like?
Yeah, so you're very correct in, sharing that. I kind of knew Charlottesville, so I, come back, I feel that's more familiar. I kind of have that game down, so to speak. And it actually really helped me to be as present as I could for Darden, and being a student again. As I mentioned, I had 8 years of experience. It's been a while since I've been in the typical classroom, versus, working every day and that's a classroom in itself, in some way. But I kind of came in with my own expectation or just approach that I was just going to try my best and just dive in as much as I could. I knew it would be difficult just because I had been in advertising. I studied, and I was in a more niche area. I studied Spanish and history in undergrad. Like I've had my own business experience, but finance and accounting and operations, I knew those all would be new. So I think I came in realistically, just knowing it's going to be a little tough and there's going to be sort of a learning curve. But I got this far. I have a lot of experience under my belt. I know Charlottesville. Let's just get down to it. It was a lot though, like starting here. There's so much going on. And I kind of already had a sense that would happen because I went to UVA for undergrad, and the community aspect very much still stands between the undergraduate and the graduate schools from my experience. So that was really fantastic to be re-experiencing again. But I think it was just a bit of a whirlwind. Like you're meeting so many new people, you're taking these new classes. And like I said, a lot of it was new. And I know it is new for everyone. It's sort of a unique experience that we're all going through. So I think being sort of compassionate with myself when I could and sort of realizing what I didn't know, but also leaning on what I do know and how I feel, about myself and what I can bring, was a way to guide me through. But as expected, Darden has a lot of programming when you start. You have launch week. I also did Darden before Darden, which I highly recommend to incoming students if they have the opportunity. And then you kind of jump into classes, and it's sort of, 3 classes a day. It's 8 to 1 with breaks. It's a new type of sort of rigor to be adjusted to adjust to. Especially after working. And, I was in office 3 days a week, for instance. So I'd say there's a lot being thrown at you, but everyone's very welcoming. People are wanting to meet each other. I think the admissions team, as expected, I also knew this would be the case. They do an excellent job of bringing in really high quality students and just high quality people. So it was really fun to be meeting all those new people in the flurry of, social events and obviously academics and figuring out the cases and the tech notes. But what's nice is that the year is built such that, there is about 350 students, but then, you're split up into the sections and the learning team. So there's a lot of, areas of community that you can tap into depending on sort of the needs or the social bandwidth that you have. And I think that's really nice, especially at the beginning, because everyone's kind of figuring themselves out. Some people are figuring out Charlottesville, which I luckily didn't have to do in the same way. But generally, it was kind of an onboard. It's like a new job. You're sort of onboarding, getting up to speed. And that's what the first 2 months felt like. And the quarters are 7 weeks long. They're not that long in reality. So you're really ramping up. And I did take time off before starting at Darden. I took, 2 or 3 months. And so that was also very good for me because I could really decompress, relax, reorient as I was sort of transitioning back into the student life. And so that was really helpful because when we started, it was sort of go, go, go. But that's why I came. That's why I'm here and chose to do the MBA and, get stuck in to the Darden community in that way.
I know it takes a little while to process. How long did it take for you to kind of feel settled, like you kind of had a handle on things? Just curious.
In terms of academics, I won't lie, like it did take me probably the first 2 quarters just to get adjusted, especially because so much material is being thrown at us, which is why we're here, why we do the core. It's a way to sort of ground everyone in the foundations that are necessary to, take electives. So I'd say in terms of sort of that aspect of my experience, it, took maybe a couple quarters, which isn't like a bad thing at all. I think that was very normal for everyone. I think what I was adjusting to was, again, being a student, having a different type of, work day, so to speak. Working in teams was not new to me, obviously, but again, you're still doing it in an academic setting, whereas, I was used to doing it in a work setting at my old jobs. So I'd say that was kind of the transition there. And, the typical things like studying and, using your weekends wisely. It was not a barrier. It was just sort of a fun learning curve again, because when you're in the workplace, I didn't have to necessarily work on weekends. So again, just sort of reorienting that schedule to something that best served me, because ultimately my goal was to be as prepared for class as I could, and try and participate, whether it was a question or, sharing something about the case. I try to lean into whatever I gleaned from my prep. But yeah, I think like any new experience, it does take time. And especially as we're all sort of adults, we're not college age students. There is a different level of, self-awareness that it won't take a week or 2 weeks. But it's been a really great experience just for me personally, being able to sort of readjust and, schedule my life in a way that makes sense for me in this, new academic time.
Yeah, that transition from work and the structure and timing of a work schedule to a school schedule where there's not really boundaries exactly on how this is going to, it's a no 9 to 5 existence going through the Darden MBA program. I think you're right to highlight that as something that is as an adjustment for folks, maybe under talked about, underreported when it comes to thinking about, getting started at MBA program, but nevertheless, super important to note here.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So what section were you in?
So I think I'm still in the section, even though we're not in core anymore, but I am in, or was, in section A. So we sat in classroom 120, which is, obviously in the sort of the main Darden classroom area. Our mascot was a lion. We called him Simba. So that was a really fun group to be a part of. I think, again, like I mentioned, the different sort of communities you can tap into. The section was really one where you get to know people very well. And I think it's such a unique time in everyone's life to be in that kind of intense experience, but with a group of 70 people. And everyone has different backgrounds and sort of different life stories. And so even as I said, with the transition taking a couple of quarters, I would say, it took most of core to really build all those relationships that I have now in the section, just because everyone's kind of figuring themselves out. And that's okay too. But yeah, I definitely value the section experience, and even beyond sort of the academics, there was always opportunities for bonding. I was on the section leadership board, so sort of had a different view on how I wanted to bring community to the section as well, just working with some other, a few key people, like our section rep and such. So yeah, we did a cheer every morning before class and then at the end of class. And so that was always a fun way to keep camaraderie up, even if we were sort of tired that day or feeling a little worse for wear. But overall, I think all of the sections, have their own flavor, their own vibe, and it's really great to see sort of relationships grow from that. And so I really valued my section experience. Will always be section A. It's another way to sort of link up with the second years, because they've also been in those seats the year before. And I think that's sort of a special, a special experience that we're going through. So love section A. We're not going to be in section A in this way again, obviously, in the classroom. So I always love seeing the section A'ers in my electives. So that's been really fun.
Do you have a favorite section A tradition?
So yeah, no, great question. So we did this cheer, which if any student is listening and comes to Darden, they will learn the cheer if they're in section A. But something that we would do at the end of every day, you would sort of pass the lion. It was this cute little stuffed animal that was Simba. You'd pass the lion to someone who sort of has impacted your week, someone who, said something really insightful in the classroom, anything really. But it was just a nice way to acknowledge, the diversity of people in the room. And, if you knew that someone was having trouble in a specific subject or trying to really do their best that day and they answered a question correctly, it's something that you can call out. And it was kind of a 30-second moment that re-grounded everyone in, okay, like this is our community. We're here for everyone. We want to make sure people are feeling welcome. So that was a really fun thing. I think I got mine at the very beginning of the year for on the camp. There was a camping trip for first years, and our section rep at the time wanted me to take care of the lion because he brought it on the camping trip. So that was sort of my little contribution, which was very fun. But yeah, it's just a nice way to acknowledge people's experiences or achievements or just being a good friend to someone that week. So that's something that I'll miss for sure.
So I want to talk about other leadership opportunities and roles that you've taken on here and talk a little bit about the life outside of the classroom. You mentioned that you were part of the leadership group for Section A. What role did you have?
Yeah, so I was the gender equity representative. So there's obviously one per section. And my desire for going into that role was, predominantly to make sure that within the women at Darden or the women in my section, I could build a strong community or be there for them in specific ways. I think, women are a minority at Darden, which is totally fine. And so if there's a way that I can bring that community to the women as we're kind of going through our own experiences, that's sort of why I wanted to run. I think it's important as well, with gender as a conversation and just sort of it can be an electric topic. I think with sort of the workplace and as we're getting older and just the landscape of how gender is discussed nowadays. And so I wanted to be someone in the classroom that could hopefully sort of open conversation and open dialogue in a safe way. I think a lot of people are coming from very different backgrounds and very different levels of, quite frankly, just interaction with women in the workplace, which is, again, not a bad or good thing. It's just everyone's experience. So I felt strongly about being someone that could hopefully offer different perspectives, be welcoming to everyone, not just, the women, but the men as well, and sort of trying to bring about constructive dialogue. Because the reality is, when we all graduate in 2026, we're going to be entering diverse workplaces and even more diverse than before, hopefully. So being able to sort of, at least from a gender perspective, discuss the experiences, just try and understand people's experiences better on both sides of, the gender spectrum, was important to me. And I had a great group of other gender equity reps from the other sections. And so we would sort of meet regularly to kind of talk about how the classroom's going, anything we were observing, how we could help. And again, we're also students and we're also learning, but something that I, have always tried to build is that camaraderie with women. And I was in a sorority at UVA. I've played on sports teams with, female sports teams. So that was a really fun experience to have in the end and just be someone that anyone could come to. So that was sort of my motivation for running there and working with, I think it was about 10 or 11 of us on the Section A board. It was just fun to kind of work with them too and share my ideas with them. And before I sort of shared something with the larger group and, just have a team behind you in a safe way, in a safe space, because we're all just, trying to make the experience better for everyone, not just the majority students. Everyone is welcome at Darden and everyone has a voice. So how can we, amplify those voices, regularly, or at least in a cadence and in a forum that feels, relevant for the topic that we're discussing. So yeah, that was kind of a bit of what I try to do or in the gender equity role.
And this is also a time of year where there's leadership transition in many of the clubs and organizations. So are you involved with any clubs or organizations you would want to mention here?
Yeah, so I'm excited to share that I'm going to be on the Graduate Women in Business Board, so GWIB for short. I will be the VP of Academics, which I'm really excited about, with my sort of tech internship and interest in helping to bring other people into the industry and, have that experience. I'll be a VP of careers on the technology club board as well. Tutoring was something that I did as a first year. I was tutored by some great second years in subjects where I needed that extra help. And I will be leading that with actually a friend of mine who was also a gender equity rep. We will be leading that tutoring program. And so that's something that we both were very positively impacted by. And we want to make sure students know that that's a resource when they come, because I think there's kind of a weird stigma around it, or unsure feeling about what it does. But she and I will be leading that. And yeah, within the sort of GWIB landscape as well, I'll be the new Forte Fellow. So it's for, sort of the Forte Foundation that hosts different conferences for, incoming female students, as well as provide sort of a network for female MBA students. So I'll be the fellow for Darden, just again being a resource, and luckily it will align nicely with my GWIB focus, being on academics and just sort of being, a resource, hopefully a friendly face for female students coming in. And obviously I will hopefully be a friendly face for all, but with the specific GWIB affiliation, that's kind of, I'm excited for that.
What attracted you to the VP of Academics role?
Yeah, so as a gender equity rep, I actually worked with the outgoing VP of Academics, Kristen Scruggs, very closely. She, managed sort of the gender equity reps, made sure that we were sort of onboarded onto kind of classroom dynamics, how to handle the faculty, how to, manage, the classroom in an effective way from the gender perspective. And she was such a great resource to me and friend. And I really, as I got to know her, learned a lot more about what she was doing on GWIB with this role. And it felt like the right fit for me, just, it's not one of the sort of main roles in the sense that, there's the president or like VP of events and things. But it is a role that really interacts with faculty a lot and is sort of the conduit through which GWIB can share, feedback, updates, whatever it might be. And so I found that to be an interesting challenge experience for me as well, just as I try to build my relationship with faculty. I think with academics as well, I'll be planning events, obviously of the academic inclination, but thinking through electives for, my class, the ingoing second years, also for the incoming first years, giving them opportunities to kind of ask questions about the case method and just, how to participate well in class or how to prepare. We're trying to be sort of purposeful with the events that we'll host. And especially for me as academics, I'm not trying to duplicate anything from sort of the administration side, but I think it's important for incoming students to have maybe a more casual forum where they can hear from second years who, we've all been through the core, we've all been through it. Many people before us have as well. There's opportunities to share that perspective with ingoing students. So that's sort of where I'll be focusing my efforts, and obviously working closely with the rest of the board. And we have an awesome board and we're excited to get started. But yeah, it'll be a more faculty-led kind of career, academically inclined role. But because I learned so much from the outgoing VP of Academics, I'm excited to sort of give back to the community in that way as well. So yeah.
And you mentioned being the Forte ambassador. What was exciting to you about, has Forte been an important organization to you? What was exciting to you about that role?
Yeah, so the Forte Foundation is sort of designed for sort of the female community of MBA students in terms of sort of education, networking, events. And I actually attended the Forte conference in Chicago last summer, which was an opportunity to not only meet other Darden students, which was amazing because we were all kind of about to be new at the school, but also sort of talk to different companies, understand industries, really just sort of, practice the networking because that's always something that, if you've been in a role for a long time like I had, it's a little bit of a new experience again. But it just provides sort of opportunities for engagement as well. And because again, I'm trying to give back and hopefully provide an impact for ingoing or incoming female students. I can also use Forte as sort of a way for them to extend their network. So it's a fellow in the sense of sort of being a conduit to Forte and being sort of an intermediary between the foundation and Darden, but also just for incoming students, providing other opportunities for networking and just, education, like I mentioned. So I'm excited to get started on that. I think we have some, pre-conference prep webinars that will happen. So I'll be on those. And I work very closely with the admissions team on that too. So again, I'm, very privileged to be in that role and hopefully be positively impacting, students that are coming to Darden, or if they're not, and they're exploring Darden, just being a resource generally. So yeah, I'm excited to start that. April 1st was the handover or the start date of everything, but yeah, it'll start ramping up in the summer, I think.
Any other clubs and organizations that you're involved with that you'd want to mention here?
I think beyond the tech club and tutoring, those are the ones I'm sort of on the board of. I also am on WAC, or I attend WAC, apologies, the Wine and Cuisine Club. So they've been organizing some fun events, and Charlottesville is definitely a foodie town. That has not changed since I was here for undergrad. The Darden Outdoors Club is also, really fantastic. They organize sort of different hikes and sort of outdoors events. I haven't been able to attend, but I plan to as my schedule is better now. But there's also sort of the ski trip that, a lot of students go on, and just other ways to generally be outside, which I think is so important in kind of the core. And obviously, as we develop our kind of habits and mindfulness beyond Darden, having that club as an outlet for sort of those experiences with other students as well, is really, really great. So those are two clubs that I'm pumped to be, joining more events for in the coming, in the quarter now and then in second year. And they've got some very capable boards leading the way now. So that'll be fun to engage with.
You mentioned that Charlottesville has some great places to eat and obviously a very strong culinary culture here. And do you have any favorite spots? Obviously, you've been in Charlottesville for a while. For those people who are listening to this who may not necessarily have visited yet, something you would recommend for them.
For sure. I have a few. Last night, actually, I was at Public Oyster. It's an oyster restaurant on West Main. It's a restaurant close to my heart because one of my undergraduate friends actually got married there, and I was in her wedding. So that was a place that will always hold a memory in my heart for me. And the oysters are delicious, and they have a good happy hour, so that's always fun to enjoy. Another restaurant that I actually found with my parents when they were coming to move me in last summer was Mockingbird. It's in the Belmont area, which, as people may know or find out, Belmont has a lot of restaurants, and it's kind of a Southern style restaurant. They got catfish and sort of shrimp and grits and all the good Southern home cooked meals. And that definitely is a cuisine I haven't, had a lot of generally since living in New York and LA. So happy to be kind of re-exploring the South through the culinary delights of Mockingbird. And then obviously Charlottesville is known for its wineries. There was a new one I discovered as well since being back called Eastwood. It's a little more sort of low key. It's, I think, very like 10 minutes away from Darden. They do live music as well. I forgot which day, but I will have to double check that, which day it is. And so that was a new find for me. But yeah, I think Charlottesville is definitely a foodie town. People that come here will be able to enjoy, all types of cuisine. And so that's been great coming back. And a lot of undergraduate friends are wanting to visit because not only the food is great, but the wineries and just the town in itself. It's just very lovely to walk around on the downtown mall. So
Yeah, lots to do.
yes.
And yeah, no shortage of great places to eat. Thank you for indulging that question, Elise. So I wonder, what are you looking forward to in the months ahead?
So I'm looking forward to sort of continuing my electives. Like I had shared, they're definitely a range that I'm in right now. And so I think we have about a month left. So excited to keep, diving in and learning new things that are sort of beyond the core. I think as well, I'm excited for my internship, and Darden does a great job with kind of preparing you recruiting wise. And obviously that's where I hope to get back in my VP careers role on the tech club. But there's going to be some prep for us before we head on to our different cities. But really excited to be in Seattle. I'm a West Coast fan, so just exploring a new city will be fun, and being in a tech company. I've never actually worked at a tech company before, so I'm just proud of myself for getting to that and being able to, be open to new experiences in that way. And then I think coming back for second year will be awesome. I forget that we have this 3 months apart, so people won't be seeing each other for a while. So I'm already excited for when we'll all be coming back and sort of looking into a range of electives to decide upon. And obviously with the different leadership taking some of those strategies and objectives to life and bringing them to life for incoming students, I think that'll be really rewarding. So, just trying to enjoy the next few weeks before I start. I think the tech internships start quite early because they're 12 weeks long. It's a 3-month stint. So gonna take as much as I can in from my electives and enjoy the time here. As I'll be heading out in mid-May to go to Seattle.
Last question for you, Elise. That's a lot to look forward to. Good luck in Seattle. I know you'll enjoy it out there. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful place. So best of luck and have a great summer. Last question. What's a piece of advice you would share with our prospective students who are listening to this podcast and kind of thinking about their own MBA journeys?
Yeah. Let me think. I feel like I have lots of different points. I think just any experience that you've had, personal or professional, is very valid and very welcomed. I think lean into sort of those experiences and sort of reflect on them in a way that will bring you, joy in an MBA program. And what I mean by that is, it's not going to be easy as soon as you get here. It's kind of a new place, new learning. But I think just resting on the confidence that you've had from those experiences that you've built will serve you. Because again, being in a very academically rigorous and environment and with, academically inclined people that are the best people I've met, is a new challenge in itself. So just staying true to sort of what you can bring to the table. Whatever business school someone may go to, you got in. So there's obviously a spark. There's something in there that the school feels that you can bring to the community. So when it gets tough, or even in the application process or decision process, just everything you've done so far is valid. Everything is great. What will be. But ultimately, this is a journey that will not just be the 2 years, it'll be beyond that. So maintaining the perspective there will be very useful. I think that was probably 5 pieces of advice in one, but I have a lot more to give if people want to reach out. But
Well, Elise, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. And thanks so much for taking some time out of your schedule for the podcast. And again, have a great time at Amazon this summer.
Great. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day as well.
And that was my conversation with Alys Herbert, a first-year student in our full-time MBA class of 2026. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at Darden, that's DARDEN, @virginia.edu. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.